The future belongs to service providers who innovate without limits. That's why the fastest growing service providers are choosing the NetSapiens platform. Visit netsapiens.com.
Hey everybody, it's Doug Green and I'm the publisher of Technology Reseller News, and I'm very pleased to have with me today Harold Hardaway of Voix. Harold, thank you for joining me today.
Hello, Doug. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
So we're going to be talking about what do most leaders get wrong about rolling out AI. We're going to be diving into that in just a second. But Harold, tell me a little bit about yourself and about your background. It's not every day that I get to talk to a PhD. So and what Voix is.
Yeah, for sure. So at Voix, we are a strategic communications and narrative strategy organization. So all that means is we help leaders and organizations clarify their message and communicate with impact. So my background is I've done communications for many, many years, almost 2 decades at this point. I started out and cut my teeth doing change management work at an enterprise IT organization for a grocery retailer here in Texas. I've worked for a healthcare IT organization, and I've run my own company twice. So I'm back at it again and just launched this year, really sort of seeing the opportunities in the tech and the healthcare space. I'm really helping folks navigate change.
So what are we missing? What are we getting wrong about AI? People are rolling it out. Everyone's diving headlong into it, but it sounds like you see something going wrong here.
Yeah, I think, a lot of folks are taking it as a tooling decision and not necessarily thinking about it as a real change management opportunity is the biggest thing for me. And so I always like to say when I was back working with IT, my IT partners would tell me, you tell me what you need and I'll tell you how, right? And that's kind of the tooling decision. And so unlike back in the day when you had PeopleSoft as an enterprise system and you were going to transition to Workday, if the job was recruiting, the job was the same. There was someone to translate what you did in the current tool to the new tooling process, right? If you're going to get a new CRM or something for your contact center or whatever, okay, well, it's easy. We know what we're going to translate. You might get some efficiencies out of the process. Well, today with AI, we don't actually really know what the job is because AI can do so much of it and it continues to grow in its capability. And we have to continue to grow in our understanding of it. So I think the real gap from a change management perspective is articulating the difference between today and tomorrow for the end user. And to me, that's what I see as the biggest gap. And it's really the hardest part. And when it comes to change, people tend to rely on communications, but telling people, this is the delta, right? This is what we do with it. And that's not IT's fault, right? That's not the technology's fault. That's really on the business.
Now, I have to ask, why do I even need change management? What am I trying to, it sounds like you're arguing that because I'm implementing AI or along with AI, I also need to entertain the adoption of other changes. Is that what you're arguing?
Yeah, I think that's, the big thing, right? Because just because you give someone access, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be adoption of the tool or even any sort of level of competence. And so what change management does, and this is the example we used to tell people, there's a boat. You want everyone to get on the boat, right? That's the change management process.
Right.
Stakeholder management, it tells people, you figure out how far people are from the boat. Doug's really close to the boat. Harold's super far. That means we're going to have to do more work for him. Communications, all it does is tell people there is a boat, right? Training is what, you teach people how to use something. Transition is, the difference between today and tomorrow and what happens there, right? So to me, that's kind of the big thing, like relying on kind of telling people that there is a boat is great, right? And this is the one line I love to use. Communication in the absence of details creates anxiety. And so in a lot of organizations right now, we've given people access to AI. We've allowed them to create their own agents if they know what that is, if they know how to create them, and everyone's doing their own thing. And so a lot of times when we have these tools, we do want to gain efficiencies, we want to improve processes, but if everyone's out there doing their own thing, it's hard to do that. And that's an opportunity that we have to educate people on how to do it, but then to be able to bubble up those learnings. And some of that comes with the sort of dreaded G word of governance. We have to
Think about that a lot.
Yeah, we have to govern, these processes, and because you don't want to stifle creativity, you want people to try. But if you think about it, if it's your CRM or if it's your enterprise tool, you're not just going to give everyone access and allow them to create their own processes. That would actually sound, crazy to someone in that space. But that's kind of what we're doing with AI right now. So I think the big thing and the opportunity that we have is make it digestible. One of the suggestions I often give folks is make it local. So for me, in communications, well, what's the part of communications we could and should automate right now, right? And as a team, we work through that, improve that process, and then roll it into our processes going forward, right? Instead of trying to boil the whole ocean, or what's the other analogy, throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. That's what organizations are doing right now. So make it digestible, be clear, about the process we're trying to improve. And it also allows people to see progress, where right now, the folks I talk to and my friends aren't necessarily feeling it. It's kind of still a little bit of the wild, wild west.
So you said something, and I'm very curious about it. Draft was never the bottleneck. Alignment was. So what does that mean?
Yes, and I will say this, back to my change management days, to when I've been the executive director of internal comms for an organization, leaders making decisions in a timely way has always sort of been the gap. So what I mean by that is I spent so much of my time talking to different leaders in the organization, trying to get alignment on a decision, right? And so, sure, I can go to AI to draft something, to come up with a presentation or a process or a policy. But if we don't have decisions actually made, that sort of generative part of AI doesn't really save you too much time until the very end, because the gap has always been leadership alignment. And that's what I really mean by that. And a lot of times once you actually have that opportunity, and we see this with IT and technology releases, they want it released by July 1st, but they wait until June 25th to make the decision and still expect you to hit July 1st, right? And so once you never get the alignment when you need it. And so AI, sure, we can generate something and it's given us as communicators a little more speed, and generating something towards the end, but we still spend the same amount of time up front when it comes to getting alignment. And I think that's across the board when it comes to making decisions around tooling, when it comes to what the organization's stance or policies are going to be. It's all about alignment.
Harold, do you see companies actually using AI to generate messaging? And then do you see errors occurring with that?
Yes, and I think there are two things, right? So I think where the moment isn't necessarily like a moment of consequence, it's okay to let AI generate some of those messages. Like you can play around with like thought leadership pieces or blog posts and some customer outreach, if it's been trained generally how to get that right, and then the customer can respond and, kind of give it a 0 to 5 stars or something like that. And you can iterate on it. I think where AI tends to go wrong is in moments of consequence that really matter, because one, it doesn't sound like anyone. So it's dramatically accurate, right? Whatever you put in, it'll be accurate, sort of giving that out to you. But at the end of the day, in those big moments, you're just sort of missing, yep, this is my line, that's right. Everyone wants to use AI to draft something. No one wants to sound like it.
No one wants to what?
To sound like AI.
Oh, right, right.
You always want to use it. You love the speed. I don't know how many times I was told, use AI. And I'm like, sure. But as soon as something is spit out, leaders are like, that doesn't sound like me, or this doesn't sound like the organization. So I think in those critical moments, AI can generate the draft, but you have to go in and really add the human layer to it. and the emotional layer to it. So that's my answer for that one.
Harold, you use the term work before the words. So I want to know what that means, and then I need to know what that means with regard to AI rollout.
Yeah, and it kind of gets back to understanding the difference between today and tomorrow. So when I say work before the words in my work, it is getting
Right.
alignment. It's understanding what's important from all of the leaders. From an AI perspective, it's like, sure, this is the tool, but this is how we're going to do it in our organization. This is, the initial governance, and these are the initial processes we're going to go for. It's very easy to, again, give access, throw things out there, let people experiment and try. The difficult part is understanding what good looks like, what a goal is, what metrics are, right? And if you haven't done the work before the words, there's not necessarily a goal. So you'll hear a lot of organizations and leaders say, we need to be an AI first organization. And then if you ask any of them, what does that mean? They look at you and like, well, how do you measure it? How does someone know if they are living into that for your organization, right? And so you keep telling me, I need to be AI first. I need to be AI first. Okay, well, what am I supposed to do, right? And I think at the same time, giving people an opportunity and space to explore, but then grace, when things don't go well is important too, and considerate learning. I think there's a little bit about the experience and really tailoring it to the audience. And I think that comes across in where people are. So if I'm hopping online and I want to change my flight, I can actually tell you this. This actually happened once, and I'm assuming AI did something. Something happened at Delta. I was supposed to fly to London, and they sent me something and saying, weather's going to be bad. We think you should change your flight. I was like, what's going on? I went ahead and changed my flight, and I was fine with that level of outreach, right? I was like, great, they're being proactive. I'm sure the computer's telling me to do this. The next step that happened is the flight that I changed, I got a text message telling me it was canceled after they told me to make this change. So I picked up the phone and I called whatever that line was that I was supposed to call, because I wanted to talk to a human at that point, right? And at that point where I was, had they actually connected me to a computer, I probably would not have been a happy camper, right? But at that moment, the person came on the phone. So I think this sort of pivot to pushing everything to AI, I think there are some things people are willing to accept, especially at a moment of convenience. And again, I'm going to use the phrase like when it's a moment of consequence, whether it is the person feels like it's a consequential moment or it actually is, that's where, I think an over-reliance on it, companies really underestimate what that's looking like. And we can even read now, companies have gotten rid of a lot of people and having to bring people back into the organization, because sometimes, AI isn't getting you exactly, what you're going for. And I think we've seen this with other technologies, whether it was the internet, we eventually got to, a bubble bursting moment. And there's a lot of great things AI can do, but we don't necessarily understand all the capabilities right now. And the pendulum's probably going to swing back at least a little bit once it all levels out. So I do think, the work of understanding which parts of your business your customers are okay with interacting with AI, which ones they aren't, and doing that work up front and just not assuming that people are going to accept it. Because there is a little bit of pushback. Again, you don't want to sound like AI, but also your customers don't necessarily want to read it when it comes across. When those moments where I think emotions are heightened. We're dealing with the computer, but we're not computers.
I like your example there about the human in the loop with the flight experience, because it's, if I'm interpreting it right, you initially were grateful for the AI that you got at the beginning, which was better than a human could have done, right? It was immediately proactive. I see Harold's not going to get where he's going. I'm going to offer him an alternative. I'm going to give him a timely notification. and I'm going to give it to him in a way that he can consume and easily react to. So, okay, achieved. But then it sort of escalated into crisis because now, right, the solution failed. Now you wanted to talk to a human being, and their system was good enough to estimate now it's time for us to link up Harold to a human. Right? Yeah.
And while I was calling, I think within like 60 seconds of me being on hold, they actually called me.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
And because I had my bags packed and standing there. So to your point, you're kind of in a moment of crisis. You need an immediate response, and going through, it's not an IVR, but whatever the tree is that you're going through isn't going to work at that moment. And I didn't want to hear it. Right. And I think we've all gotten to that place. And so it's just like, I would say right now, if you connect your phone to your car, you get in your car, and if you go to dinner at the same place every Thursday, all of a sudden about 2 years ago, it used to say, are you going here at this location? And it would pull up the map for you. All of those things are really great, but I'm at a place where I can receive and accept, accept those things. But if I'm calling the hospital, if I'm calling, the emergency room or something like that, clicking buttons and those kind of things is probably not something I am emotionally in the right place to receive, at that time.
I think this is a great place for us to wrap up our podcast, because it sounds like you may have some ideas, parting ideas for our readers, because I think this is the struggle, right? They're attempting to create good CX, maybe even better employee experiences too. And, you've been writing about, AI first, everyone's making that declaration. But it sounds like people have to figure out some kind of balance, have to figure out some rules.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I would tell everybody is probably go local.
Go
team specific is what that means. So you can have a big organizational campaign, but I think where the rubber meets the road is the job to be done and the experience at the team level. And so preparing leaders to work and navigate their teams through this process, I believe, is important. And I would also say giving people the space to explore and try things, because what I've also seen is your job is the same. Your responsibilities and my expectations of you is the same, but I'm giving you this new tool and I'm telling you to reinvent your job at the same time. And that's almost everyone I've spoken to. So the two things would be start local, let people start with their teams. And the other thing is give them the space to explore, try, and work things into their job.
Well, Harold, I really want to thank you for joining me today. This has been very interesting. I hope we get to do some follow-up podcasts with this great topic.
Yeah, it's been great. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. I'm putting up there where people can learn more. I hope everyone gets in touch with you to learn more. And like I said, I'll look forward to the next one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Doug.
Innovate without limits, scale without compromise, and never pay per seat again. Discover why providers choose netsapiens.com.